All right, so I'm starting. We're starting. Um, I have a special guest today. I always joke that this is my podcast at this point because I feel like it's always just like long format edited content at this
Mm-hmm.
point. Um, but yeah, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself. But
Yeah. Uh, Hello, I'm Major Monotone. In real life, I'm like a marine biologist in training. Um, I'm really into nature to the point where I'm trying to make it my career, so that's fun. Um, I like specialize in like creepy crawlies and invertebrates and like jellyfish and shit like that.
yeah, super cool. Thank you for coming on. I actually wanted to invite Major Monotone on specifically to talk about nature and the concept of like entropy and also rot and
Mm,
fungus. Even though I know that's not your area of expertise, like
mhm.
you mentioned, you're focusing on um, vertebrates and other kinds of life forms, but I still figured that you'd have some kind of like insight into entropy and like all that other
Oh,
good stuff.
oh
So,
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, it's like the basis of like I've taken a lot of ecology courses. Like I was a park ranger for a while, so like you you tend to see like the whole decay process go down, and it's like really cool to see that over the course of a couple seasons.
Yeah, and
So
I
like,
I might
mm,
actually go on a tangent with you probably at the end of the stream because I'm definitely going to have like a tangent section
oh
of
hell yeah.
this like conversation because I have a series of like interview questions that I'm going to ask you, and
Hmm.
then we'll go into just like tangent chaos zone where we'll talk about nature and chaos and order and like a bunch of other stuff. So yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So
cool.
I'm gonna go ahead and ask you a bunch of questions now. So the first one is
Okay.
to you, especially as somebody that has like played Elden Ring before and works with nature. What is
Hmm.
rot and entropy to you?
Okay. So like when you have like entropy, that's generally like defined as a loss of energy in a system, right? So this is from like an imperfect reaction that has a lot of heat in it, um, or like a physical process that would result in like friction, because friction also generates heat. So you're losing energy as you're doing things. This also happens like in your body because you are kind of run by chemistry, right? And like we as people, mammals, we even have cells that are specialized to produce heat, which like is technically a byproduct or a waste product in a lot of reactions. So that's kind of cool.
That
Um,
actually leads into the next question too, which
oh yeah.
was what is thermodynamics and how does that play into rot and a bunch of other stuff. I didn't know if you wanted to weave that into what you were saying or if you wanted to
Yeah.
add to that at all.
Yeah. So with thermodynamics, it's like the technical definition is that it's like the study of heat and work being like movement, right? That's like the physics definition is you're like acting on something, and generally that's like moving it. And it's got three laws. I remembered the first one, but I had to brush up on the second two. Um, the first one is that energy can't be like created or destroyed. It's only redistributed or turned into different types of energy, right? So you can have electrical energy or what could be defined as electrical energy going into heat as a waste product. That's why your electric stove may work. Um, the second one is that entropy never decreases when you add stuff to a system. So, like, if you're adding chemicals and complexities into a reaction, you can't decrease the entropy. It's kind of like like, even if those were perfect, right, you're still going to have something there if there was entropy at any point in that. Really, entropy increases the more stuff you add to it because you're having more room for imperfections. I don't like using that term, but that's essentially what it is. Yeah, and then like the final one, which I think is dumb because it can't happen, is that entropy in a system decreases the colder that system gets, which is really weird because like molecules are moving less, because their movement is heat, right? So
Yeah, and that makes
if
sense. Like
Mhm,
if you know water, which is like in motion and flowing, it's a liquid,
mhm.
gets frozen into a solid. That's also why we like preserve our food in uh freezers and like ice boxes and stuff.
Exactly. And it's like it's interesting because water also expands as you heat it up. Like a warm cup of water with the same amount of molecules as a cold cup of water will be taller. Or
Oh,
it will the water in it will be taller because the molecules are literally more separated and moving more.
that's interesting.
So,
That's
yeah,
so
it's
cool.
really weird. It's like the only way that you could ever hit zero, like no entropy, theoretically, is if you hit absolute zero,
Okay.
which is a thing that literally can't exist because by molecules existing, they have energy, right? So it's like even in the furthest vacuum of space ever, stuff is going on over here, and so there's energy over there.
Huh.
It's like a really weird thing that I have a lot of trouble wrapping my head around.
That's totally yeah, that's honestly why I had you come on my channel is largely cuz
Mhm,
like a lot of this stuff while I understand it like on a very like I took obviously my biology courses that I need to take for neurology, but like
mhm,
when you get into neurology, you really do focus on brain matter and it's, you know, it
mm,
decays and there's entropy in the brain and stuff like that. But it's very different than, you know, obviously when we're looking at fungus in like forests or fungus in funguses, fungi,
fungi's.
fungi in regard to like
Yeah.
trees and plant life and how matter breaks down, you know, in parks. I wanted to talk to you um or potentially Salmon, who's another person in my community, about your time
Yeah.
in parks and
Mm-hmm.
all that other stuff. But transitioning into the next question, which is what is fungus? How does it help with the process of entropy and all that good
Oh,
stuff?
oh boy. Okay. So fungus is like a kingdom, right? Like you have animals, you have plants, and then you have fungi. And they're like totally different and unique and crazy. And like I read up every now and again on like scientific literature on fungi because like every time someone just rummages around in the dirt, you find something totally cool. Um, but generally, they're like us, they're heterotrophs, which means that they don't produce their own energy. They take it in from something else, right? So they're consumers. And generally, they're called like decomposers, right? So, like, you'll commonly see like mushrooms on a log. Um, the real body of the fungus will actually be in the log itself. Those are like the hyphae, which are like the root-like structures. They go all throughout whatever they're consuming, and they're digesting whatever they're eating at the very tips. Basically breaking down those large molecules into smaller molecules that they can then consume.
So I actually have a question about that. There's like
Yeah.
some enemy design, like the clean rot knights that have like what look like almost branches kind of coming out of them, and I've seen people
Oh,
mention that as fungi before.
let's see. Sorry, I'm gonna look them
No,
up
you're
real
totally
quick.
okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
can pull up a picture too.
Oh, yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah, hold on one sec. Let me.
Yeah,
But yeah,
because
keep you can keep talking about what your
okay.
tangent that you were on while I look up this picture.
Yeah, it's only tangents here.
Yes.
Yeah, the hyphae are like the main body of the fungus. Like what we consider like a mushroom or like a fruiting body is actually like a very rare occurrence, and those are the gonads of the fungus. So like try not to think about that whenever you eat mushrooms, or do. I can't tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Um but like that's what those fruiting bodies are. They're the reproductive parts that spreads the spores of the mushroom or the fungus.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Uh, yeah, so like they're this very interconnected thing. There's a wonderful book that I should have brought over. I think it's called Entangled Life. It's all about this kind of stuff. I do recommend it. It's a really good deep dive on like mushrooms and how they've affected people and how they still affect people. Um, But with plant life, it's really interesting because a lot of fungi are found near plants because plants basically have everything the fungus needs. Plants are made out of sugar. Um, they're made out of inedible sugar for animals, which the fungus can usually break down. They give a structure for the fungus to hold on to,
Ooh.
um, which like is something that like I feel like is Godwin related, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I definitely see Godwin as more so there's a conversation in my community and usually in the comments of
Mm.
also real quick, sorry. I actually should probably show this visual while I'm talking about it so
Oh yeah.
that way people can see what I'm saying. Hold on one moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Yeah, no worries.
so uh,
Oh
look
yeah.
at wow, I'm really just like doxing myself right
Oh no.
now. I can't
It's
pay.
like
I can't.
you're good. You're
I'm
good.
good.
You
I'm good. I'm
can.
good. Okay. I can. I can do it. I can do it. I just like selected the same capture method like 50 times because I got really nervous for 5 seconds. Okay. So if you take a look at like the
Hmm.
elbows, the elbow area,
Yep.
kind of where the joints are, you can see these like little twigs kind of
Mm.
poking out. And
Mm-hmm.
initially, a lot of people thought that, like, oh, it's probably like tree related to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
But given the fact that they're related to Melania and were present during the blooming of Caled, a lot of
Mm.
people are speculating that this might be some kind of fungus or something
Y
too.
yeah, I mean, the famous example is like have you heard of the cordyceps fungus?
No, I haven't.
Oh, so these are the zombie fungus. It's what inspired The Last of Us.
Ooh.
Um, but this is a parasitic fungus that takes over either insects or arachnids like spiders. Um, they're highly specific to their target, but what they do is that if like an ant breathes in or consumes the fungal spore, the fungus
Oh yeah.
begins to grow through the ant's body, right? Okay, so you have heard of this.
Yeah, because it was also because I've played The Last of Us, but it was also the
Mhm.
inspiration for Resident Evil 4's
Oh,
Las
really?
Plagas. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so what's interesting about the cordyceps fungus is that for a long time scientists used to think that it would take over the insect's nervous system,
Mm.
right? Basically give them the right neurotransmitters to make them act a certain way. Um and basically with the goal of making this bug climb on top of a branch and then have the fungus erupt out of its head to spread its spores, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
What a horrible thing. Um, but as it turns out, they don't take over the nervous system.
Oh.
The cordyceps fungus will wriggle its hyphae all the way through the musculature of the insect and leave the nervous system alone.
Oh my god. So it's like, is it moving itself? Like, is it moving the bug itself?
The idea is that it's releasing either hormones or salts into the muscles to get them to move a certain way. So like it's not like moving like mushrooms and fungi, like they can't like move like we can,
Yeah.
but the idea is that it's using chemistry to move the limbs of the insect.
Oh, okay. So it's not controlling the nervous system, but rather
Mhm.
releasing hormones that affects like the brain or like whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like that's at least the most recent theory or trend on it.
Hmm.
It's still very much debated because it's such like a highly complex system.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about mind control
Yeah. It's
or
super.
muscle control,
Well,
right?
yeah, and even mushrooms just conceptually as like their own thing are pretty complicated.
Oh, yeah, like I didn't even get into it, but like the
Oh yeah.
hyphae, they don't like they like normally you would think like a plant communicates with itself with hormones, right? So if a leaf gets cut, hormones are released and then that slowly moves up the body. But with mushrooms, they actually have salt channels like our nervous system. So they send electrical
Oh,
signals. So it's like a neural net
that
instead of hormones.
that's so interesting. Because I know
Yeah.
I know that there's like something with like mushrooms also helping or like communicating between plants in some way, but like I read that briefly. I don't know if you know anything about that, but
I think I think it is that system of nerve nets or nerve like nets cuz like I if I remember right, they have like hollows that they either insert or remove salt and in that way it acts like our neurons.
ew, yeah.
And
Sorry.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I found what I was referring to. So it says like
Hmm.
fungi function like the internet of the forest, helping plants communicate to each other using mushroom
Oh,
wires on the forest floor. Plants can send
no
nutrients and
shit.
electrical impulses to each other via mushrooms. That's so
Oh, that's
crazy.
so cool.
That's
Because
so
it is a
crazy.
lot faster than and reliable than like having the wind send your hormones.
Yeah. Oh
Because
my
like the
gosh.
whole point of like bark and like a tough fibrous structure is to stop shit from getting into you
Yeah.
and leaving. So yeah, that's really cool.
That's wow. Okay. New respect for mushroom now.
Absolutely.
And then how do you feel that the Scarlet Rot is portrayed in Elden Ring?
Ooh, so it's weird to me because like rot itself is like a biological process, right? It's like a mushroom or a fungus or a bacteria breaking something down into smaller bits,
Yeah.
and that then gets reused by the environment, right? Like fungi and bacteria are some of the few organisms like in a forest that can break down wood, right? Otherwise, that'd be like you'd need termites to do that, and that takes a lot longer, right? And
Mm.
they're not as efficient at it. So it's one of those things that's interesting where, if I recall correctly, like, is the whole like rot, like the goddess of rot, like, let's see, are there any other like life
Yes.
related concept? There are.
So, in terms of rot, there are
Mm,
actually the lords of like fungi who are the fungus crowns who are
mm,
supposed to be servants of the goddess of rot or the god of rot. So the
mm,
original god of rot had the scorpion tail as like its icon, but the mushrooms in the game and the whole concept of poison seems to
mm-hmm,
be amplified by these mushroom crowns. So just the
mm,
whole um like mechanics of how mushrooms work and their association with rot make me think that it has more to do with just like scarlet cups are present in the game.
mm-hmm,
Like all the mushroom life in Caelid seems to be just like more associated with rot and mushrooms, where like you mentioned before, Godwin and like the way that his body is interacting with the tree almost seems like a tree rot because it's turning the wood like
mm-hmm.
black.
Yeah. No, that's a really interesting point because like yeah, my whole thing with what I find interesting with Melania is that like and the rot itself isn't that it just doesn't kill straight up, right? Like it's not death, it is like almost like a rebirth.
Like the breakdown.
Yes, because it's then being able to be used again, just in a different form.
Yeah, and that actually
Um,
leads to another
mm.
question that I realized I totally skipped, which
Oh,
uh, is this necessary to life at all? Like, is the process of entropy and rot necessary
oh
just in
yeah,
general?
100%. Like there's if I recall correctly, there was like a period in Earth's history where like woody plants have had evolved, but bacteria hadn't evolved to break down the sugars that made up the wood.
Mhm.
And so you just have like a pile of petrified wood after a certain amount of time.
Oh man, is that
Like
where petrified like forests come from?
that I'm not sure about.
That could be something else, probably.
Yeah, I know that some of that comes from like trees that were flooded and then they get like covered in silt.
Hmm.
Um but like these ones I think it was like a brief like period in Earth's history where it's like man, we're just locking carbon up into this and once it's in there there's nothing you can do about it. So I'd say that like Rot is definitely vital. Entropy is like an interesting one because like it's technically like imperfections in chemistry and physics.
Yeah.
So like I think yes, because like I said, we use entropy to heat ourselves basically. Like we use reactions that are technically like wasteful in our cells to produce our body heat.
Yeah.
So I do think that it is useful because like even though we're getting rid of energy, we have like this great thing called the sun that gives us more.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we haven't like run out of it. So like biological energy is always coming in thanks to the sun. So like I hate to say that we can afford to be a little wasteful to heat up our own bodies, but like
That
yeah,
makes sense.
absolutely.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and then, like, how do you feel that this might all play, like, both the mushrooms and
Mm.
rot, and then
Mhm.
also the concept of entropy, versus, say, for example, like, um, like there's like the order of chaos.
Mhm.
Sorry, the concept of chaos and order, like as themes in Elden
Mm.
Ring, but also in like the Soul series, and it seems like Miyazaki will sometimes use nature, or like
Mhm.
natural systems to represent almost like chaotic systems, like with Quelaag and Izalith and all of that stuff. A lot of the monsters and demons look like animals, like they look like bugs
Mhm.
or insects. And same with like the old one in Demon Souls, he kind of looks like a bagworm covered in like trees, pretty much. So there's like a lot of
Yeah.
there's a lot of the animal uh imagery used with like the primordial chaotic magic in addition to fire. And
Mhm.
I wanted to get your take on like chaos being like this chaotic natural thing, and then what order
Mhm.
might mean to you as
Mm.
in the natural, like in the biology sphere, like how you would interpret that.
Yeah. So I mean like chaos is very funny to me in Elden Ring because like the flame of chaos itself like weirdly it's not chaotic because you're actually bringing everything to an equalizer,
Hmm.
which is very weird to me. Like Melania's rot, if you were to let that continue to its like world encompassing thing, it wouldn't destroy everything. You just get a lot more cockroach people
Yeah,
and like new life. It
I
would
have
just be like Earth 2.0.
I almost see the giant's flame as a more chaotic flame as opposed to the
Mm,
frenzied. The frenzied flame just seems like if we're using that like symbol of fire for
mhm,
cleansing like particular
mhm,
things. It seems like the giant's flame was used to burn trees. And I talked
mm,
like about it in another video about how like some indigenous cultures and some cultures still do controlled
mhm.
burning, um, which can
Yeah.
help seeds propagate, and then also the ash helps nourish like the soil and stuff like that.
Mhm,
So I almost feel like the giants kind of behaviorally similar to like Izalith in a lot of ways, where it's like this imagery of like just really unhinged life, like coming out of
ah.
like fire, like growing out of a thing that I don't know. I don't know if your
Yeah,
take is
no.
similar.
No, I get it. I didn't make that connection until you had said the ash nourishing because in a way it is recycling what is there, right? Because that's what rot is. It's recycling this material that is already there, it just making it available again. So like it makes me dislike America even more. Because it's like hers, at least the way that I interpreted her version of order is that things are unchanging and they're stagnating, which appears to be a trend in a lot of Miyazaki's games.
Yeah.
Um, I think this is the most beautiful interpretation of it.
Yeah, I think it's the most
Hmm.
complex one too. It definitely is like the most amount of like, like art history, like all the symbols,
Hmm.
all the, mythology and spirituality, like all that, all those references. There's so many more in this game compared to like Dark Souls, for example.
Oh my God, yeah.
But on the topic of you talking about Queen Marika, my last
Hmm.
question was how you feel all of this plays into death, um, and like how you
Mm.
feel kind of like rot or the loss of heat or entropy or thermodynamics plays into death, and how do you feel
Hmm.
about Queen Marika sealing away death with Malekith?
Yeah, I think that rot is interesting because, at least in nature, it's usually not the cause of death. Like, decay can spread disease, but normally that's disease that would already be like in the body, or just exacerbated by the decaying process. Um like it's one of those things where, like you said earlier, Godwin, I think, behaves a lot better in that regard than, or for that, than Melania and her rot does, because like you could almost see like that area down by like, I don't know what to call it other than like the sludge pit before her boss room.
Yeah,
You could almost see that as like nourishing Mikola's Halig tree, because it's all new material that would be there for the root of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Whereas Godwin is like it looks like he's feeding off of the roots, and I remember, I forget which NPC said it, but they said that he's using the roots to travel around and spread his influence,
yeah.
whether he knows it or not, right?
Yeah. So, one thing that I think I talked about in the Godric video is aspen. I think it's aspen trees. There's like a particular type of tree that has like a shared root system. Um,
Oh, yeah, Quaking Aspen, I believe.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
when you see them, they grow in like huge, almost like clusters that can
Mm-hmm.
spread like a mile, like they can spread really far, of just like
Yeah.
hundreds of trees. And it's really interesting
Mm-hmm.
because it shows, when we go into deep root depths, we know based on root resin that all of the trees are intertwined with their roots.
Mm-hmm.
But another really interesting thing too is they also propagate with seeds as well. Like the golden
Mm-hmm.
seeds get distributed as soon as the Erd tree recognizes that the ring has been shattered. So it almost seems like the Erd tree has some kind of like sentience when it knows that it's going to die. There's like that like failsafe of
Yeah, I mean, a lot of plants, when they feel like they're gonna die, they just like they stop growth and they just go straight into reproductive mode.
mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of animals do that. Like, it's Fat Bear Week, or I think it's Fat Bear Month, I forget. But the bears are getting ready for hibernation,
Mm-hmm.
and if you see them bite onto a salmon, um, the salmon's last instincts will be to release its either sperm or egg into the water,
Oh,
just on the off chance that that might carry on.
yes. Okay.
So,
That makes
mm-hmm,
total sense cuz another thing that I saw when I was like looking into like controlled burning and a bunch of other stuff is that like pine
mm-hmm,
cones, and I talked to Saint Trina about this too on Twitter earlier today. This is something that I
mm-hmm,
knew from school, but like when pine cones are exposed to extreme heat, the resin that
mm-hmm,
typically keeps the pine cone like sealed shut will melt,
mm-hmm.
and it'll actually like launch the pine cone like seeds like off of the cone,
Oh,
knocking the microphone because I'm getting
oh
excited.
yeah, you're good, you're good.
So it's like the heat kind of like helps like accelerate some like seeds of trees to
Interesting.
disperse. Yeah. So there's like whole systems based around heat and fire and
Mm-hmm.
like if a population of trees were burning, that would be how they would survive. Would be
Mm-hmm.
the distribution of the seeds and stuff.
And what's kind of messed up but also beautiful is that those seeds would grow really well in the ashes of their parents.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cuz there's like
Yeah.
a lot more like what is it? Nitrogen and other
Yep.
stuff in the soil
Nitrogen, phosphorus, and carbon. Those are like the holy trinity for
for plants.
growing.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, now I'm gonna open up the conversation into just free range rambling. And I know earlier before we got on the call, we were actually talking about the pests and like a bunch of other stuff that you were interested in talking about. So I'm just gonna
Yeah.
let you take it away.
Yeah, the pests weird me out for a lot of reasons, because whenever I play like any video game, whenever there's a creature, I try to pick it apart and see like what animals actually inspired it, right? Like, we had talked way before about Estelle being an antlion,
Yeah.
right? Um Also, he like I heard I was thinking like maybe he's the blue fairy. I don't know. That's bizarre.
Yeah,
He's blue. He's by the Rot Lake. It's weird.
that's
I'm
true.
still picking at that one.
That's
But
true.
anyways,
Could be Rena
oh,
or Estelle being the blue fairy.
I just like Estelle, you
Yeah,
know?
Estelle is
He's a cool
honestly
dude.
that would be pretty legit if Estelle was the blue fairy. If the blue swordsman was somehow able to like talk to the bug, the
I,
antlion.
I mean, his wing is a curved sword
Eh.
connections.
There's another. Okay, so now we have two theories back to back. We have because the last video, I don't know if you saw it. The last video is on Rena, the case for Rena being the blue fairy, but this one's pretty good.
No, I didn't catch that. Oh
Okay, yeah,
no.
definitely check.
I didn't do my homework.
No, it's totally okay. Definitely check it out because the word Rena means to melt, and the teleporter in her rise, in Rena's rise, goes to the Iron Cell River, which is like attached to the Lake of Rot.
Ooh.
So
Okay. Yep.
yeah,
Yep. Okay.
yeah. So it's but I honestly for funsies like Estelle being the fairy more, just because like like imagine seeing Estelle
Mm.
like you're a wanderer, you're a warrior, and you sense Estelle and you're like, ah, yes, this is a fairy, and it's just like,
Ah, his beautiful magical wings and wonderful glowing eye?
yeah, yeah. But yeah,
Um,
anyway, keep going, keep going.
yeah, Kindred, those guys. I was trying to pick apart like what inspired their general look. And like I'm a marine biologist, right? But I also really like bugs. I like invertebrates. And there were like two main things that hopped out at me.
Mhm.
There's a whole group of beetles called rove beetles. Um, I don't know if you've seen them. They look nothing like standard beetles. Um, they've got this like big nasty mouth and then like six legs, and then they have a weird segmented like tail section,
Okay, wait, let me
which
pull up the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
let me pull up the display capture so people can see what we're talking about.
Oh yeah, 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 of
Okay, okay,
course.
go for it.
Yeah, so like there's many different species of them. There's like 60 something thousand and like a couple 100,000 more to identify. But generally, they've got this really long back end and a long abdomen. And these beetles are found mainly in decomposing plant matter. And
Ooh.
what's interesting is that when they're threatened, a lot of them will arch their abdomen up and resemble a scorpion.
Ooh, that's
And
cool.
yeah, it's a really interesting defense mechanism and also parallel to the original God of Rot having that scorpion tail, like you said.
Yeah, that makes a
So,
lot of sense.
yeah, it's really it was like I was looking at them and like I've seen this like general appearance before, and then yeah, it hit me because like you often find rove beetles on fungi, either because they eat the fungus or they eat things that eat the fungus. Um, Plus, like decomposing material is warm, and so a lot of animals like that. Um, but the other thing that was weird to me is like the lesser kindred of rot. Um, I found this like really messed up image of one on the I think it's the Fextra Life, yeah. I'll send it to you
Yeah, send
because
it
it's
to me
like
and
super high def.
I'll share.
And like
Oh
I
yeah,
had never gotten a
the the
yeah.
gross like fetus ones. Okay, wait, hold on, let me share my again.
Hmm.
Ugh. Okay.
Yeah, there's like a bunch of different, not just insect, but also like crustacean stuff going on with these guys.
Yeah,
Um,
I always thought of
mhm.
shrimps when I saw them.
Yeah, they're called like I think like the early like wiki called them like prawns and stuff like that. And then you meet Bogart and you're like, "Oh no, we got to change that."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Um, but they've got like a weird ant head, right? And then they've got like big bulbous eyes after that.
Hmm.
And then they've got this like midsection where their arms are coming out of. And that reminded me a lot of actually an animal that I look at on like a daily basis. Let me pull up uh an image of this little plankton guy that I work with,
Okay.
um, called a copepod. They're like the basis of every marine ecosystem on the planet. But like I was looking at this dude's like body and his arm arrangement is like basically the same as that front section of the copepod. So you've
Oh
got like
yeah.
the antennae and then you have all the tucked up folded in arms right
Yeah, and they
there.
almost look like little fingers.
Yep, and they use them like fingers. They use them
Ew.
to grab food. Yeah, it's gross. Yeah, it's
I just
really
don't
gross.
like I love bugs and I love biology. I love all living things. Anything with hands is a big
Oh yeah,
mm-mm. Mm-mm.
lots of hands on this little guy.
Yeah.
Um, but like that's like the it's not a bug, it's like a crustacean. So like you're like blending different organisms together to make the creepiest of the crawlies.
Yeah. I
And it's
know
like, oh yeah, yeah.
I need to bug Hazel about this. This is totally
Mm,
kind of like a weird tangent based on like the little like lesser version of the prawns that you sent me, but I
mhm.
remember Hazel once kind of like theorizing that um the prawns had some relation to the Nox in some ways, but I need to bug them about that
Whoa.
because the when we look at
Mm-hmm.
the head, like the top part, hold on, wait, let me share my
Mm-hmm.
screen again. When we look at the top part where the ant head is, because obviously there's the ants that are down in the
Yeah.
Eternal Cities, but there's also
Mm.
like this weird little crown that looks really similar to the Nox crown and like a lot of the statues. I believe it's like the Nox monks.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
you know what I'm
One
talking
of
about?
the headdresses has that like extended back
Yeah.
portion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're related in some way. I know that Hazel had like more physical evidence
Mm-hmm.
in regard to the position of everything. I might actually like
Mm.
hold on, wait. Give me
Yeah,
one
yeah,
second. Let me actually pause the
yeah.
recording to see if I can pull Hazel into the call. Hold
Oh
on.
my God. Okay, yeah,
Hold
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Okay, we're back to recording.
Okay, cool.
So we couldn't get Hazel, we couldn't lure Hazel out onto the podcast because she's currently in a session of D&D right now, so it is what it is. But
It be that way.
we're gonna ramble about poison armament, poison armament. So I don't know if you wanted
Poison, poison, poison.
to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean just oh no, I clicked on the wrong thing. I'm a professional. Poison armament, the very last line, it's a very boring incantation, but like its description is pretty good of like those who dwell within the poison know rot all too well, the death that begets life, that all comes equally. It's the cycle of rebirth put into practice. Like I think that's a really good descriptor. And
Yeah,
like it goes back to like the I believe it was the Buddhism themes that were present with like the Scarlet Aeonia and like the lotus flower.
yeah, yeah. Like the
I like
lotus flower, like lotus flowers typically grow in like wetlands or swamp
mm,
type areas that have a lot of like stagnant water and nutrients and just gunk, dead things.
mm-hmm.
Um, and it grows above all of that, and they have like roots that you can actually eat, like potatoes. Cool
Oh
plant.
yeah. They are good.
Yes, they're very good. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I feel like
Yeah, so it's like I think it's a really good like for that whole argument for death, right? I think this is like of the deaths that were presented, I think it's a pretty cool one because it's like the most interconnected to the world,
mhm,
for lack of a better term. Like you're not going straight to the Erd tree and you're
yeah,
not getting turned to ash by the birds. You're turning into a fungus.
yeah. It's
Which,
interesting.
mhm,
So like the deathrite birds, they were some of the first life forms that were brought down to the lands between,
mm,
and they would burn people in ash. And it's not really it says that they put the ash in their kilns, but it's not really stated um how the rebirth process worked
mm,
with the deathrite birds, but very clearly
mhm,
like it worked. There was some kind of system that was happening, and I'm not sure if maybe the ash was used to, you know, help nourish the lands between it all. It's not really
mm,
stated anywhere.
mhm,
But it does seem like, there was like an era in which like a lot of different outer god concepts were working in tandem with each other, and the main
Mm.
evidence of that is Elden John just like being present at all the different sites of entropy. Like,
Yep.
you know, we have like the ancestral followers who practice death worship, and they have
Hmm.
the horn staff that looks like the Deathrite
Hmm.
bird wings. So
That was such a cool
thank
detail.
thank
I was
Vati for that
blown
one.
away.
Vati found that. We were talking about the color purple, and I was
Mm.
like, "Oh, it's so weird that like you know, there's like this whole theme of the body and the spirit dying and like the half mark
Hmm.
centipede death rune."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, that's so weird because it's like one is your HP bar, which is red, and one is your FP bar, which is blue, and like pure
Hmm.
destined death is depicted as purple. So it's like the mixture of those two
Mm.
colors." So I was like,
Ooh.
yeah, I was like, that's so cool. That's neat that
That's
like the staff, the Deathrite Bird staff that the ancestral followers use is purple. It's like painted purple. Let me
that is so sick.
let me pull up the visual real quick. I have to. It's the winged greathorn.
Oh, it's even called Winged. Oh my god.
Yeah, right. Isn't that
It's like they planned it.
they planned it all along? So yeah, it's like a neat little purple wings of death. But yeah, that's pretty much like all I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to get like another opinion because it seemed like a lot of people just in the comments of my Melania video were having kind of a rough time reconciling. Obviously, I have to do a whole nother video convincing people first off, you know, like the outer gods' intentions. And I'm gonna
Mm.
talk about the Elden Ring in my next video and the structure of the Elden Ring, what the outer
Hmm.
gods are conceptually,
Mm.
and um, you know, like their motivations and what we know about them. Um,
Hmm.
but a lot of people in the comments of people that I've talked to on Twitter have this idea that like, oh, but you know, because rot comes from an outer god, it's not natural. Or that
Oh.
because death comes from an outer god, it's not like a natural occurrence. But
Hmm.
clearly, like when those things are sealed away or like put away by like Queen
Hmm.
Marika, we see a series of curses pop up. So we see like the Omenborn and we see the Seedbed curse, which almost kind of
Hmm.
reminded me of like cancer cells in some way.
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
mean, the horns are described as growing uncontrollably, and cancer literally is called cancer because the tumors are hard like a crab,
yeah.
right? So yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Um, so I was
Sorry.
no, you're good. You're totally good. That was good
Hmm.
added context.
Mm.
But I just had like a lot of feelings about like, you know, like cancer cells are multiplying, um,
Hmm.
and without like an entropy system of cancer cells dying, or
Hmm.
like waste leaving the body. It's the same with like
Hmm.
Alzheimer's disease and like the way that our brain
Yep.
processes dead gray matter, in
Hmm.
neurology. There's like this idea of like, okay, well, if matter doesn't die,
Mm.
if we don't engage in like waste and like waste removal and waste cleaning as like
Hmm.
organic organisms, like
Yeah.
we would effectively just overgrow and clog up, and you know,
Yup.
it's like it's not a part of our nature. um it's not a part of our like cellular nature and like all this other stuff to not
Hmm.
be dying.
Yeah, I mean,
If that
you
makes sense.
literally need to. We have cells in our body dedicated to killing our own cells when they're sick,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so when I was thinking of like Queen Marika removing death from the equation, it's like it
Hmm.
seems a lot of the natural world or like the beings within the world become like tainted, or there's like some kind of
Hmm.
issue with them at some point.
Yeah, because like we said, in an ideal nature, in a nature that isn't Kaled, rot would be a good thing
Yeah,
because you get nutrients back into the system. They're not locked away.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
mm-hmm.
So we have rot, we have decay, and then it's just a matter of having Mikola to kind of like be the balance of almost like birth or the transition into new life at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like a union of opposites that's happening. And I know that there is, I mentioned this before, but there's like a cut content weapon that was for
Mm.
Melania and Mikola. That's, I think it's like the staff or like a dual blade, like a Darth Maul
Oh,
type
yes.
situation of abundance
Yeah.
and rot or abundance and decay or something like that. And it's supposed to be this, it kind of looks like, something that would be associated with Melania and Mikola. So it's a neat,
Oh, that
neat
is
little
so
nod.
cool.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on and talking about biology.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, if I know that there's like a lot of people in my community that like have all different kinds of education and want to ramble about different kinds of science. So um
Mm.
yeah, if anybody else wants to be on and just like ramble about chemistry or anything else like that, please let me know. This is super fun, so thank you.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop the video now. Bye.